Kelly Clarkson has been ordered to pay her husband almost $200,000 a month in support. How did that happen? Well, let's break it down. My name is Christopher Melcher. I'm a California attorney, and my passion is about making legal issues easy to understand. And in this video, I get to talk about family law, which is the area of my practice. That's all I do. And I'm regularly handling cases exactly like the one we're going to be talking about today. First, I want to talk about child support. Kelly Clarkson was ordered to pay about $50,000 a month in child support to Brandon, her husband. That's a huge amount of money. But Kelly Clarkson also makes a lot of money. It's reported that she makes $1.5 million per month. And because she makes a lot of money, she's going to pay a lot of support. And it's really simple as that. Now, in California, we use a formula typically to establish child support. But when we get into these bigger cases, we don't use the formula. We use what's called a needs assessment. And I really don't even like the word needs because these are more like wants. First, we look at the policy behind child support. California law says that children are the state's top priority. The children have a right to live at the same standard of living as both parents, meaning that when they're with mom, the experience should be similar to when they're with dad. And it's also understood that child support will enhance the lifestyle of the custodial parent. And what that means is that if we're paying child support and that's for our child's housing when they're with the other parent, well, that parent is going to live in that house too and get the benefit of it, and that's expected. When we're coming up with an amount of child support in these cases, first we're going to look at housing because that's the biggest expense a parent typically has. Brandon moved to Wyoming, and I assume you could rent a very nice place for $20,000 or $30,000 a month out there, and that's probably what he's asking for, and that would take up the bulk of the support. Then they would have childcare expenses, nannies probably, travel expenses, food, clothing, entertainment, etc. And when you start putting a list of those things together to match the lifestyle that Kelly has, you could easily get to $50,000 a month. And I'm not surprised at all at the amount of child support based on her income. If she has $1.5 million a month in taxable income, after paying taxes, she would have about half left over, $750,000. She's ordered to pay $50,000 a month in child support, and that's about 6% of her net income. On a percentage level, 6% seems about right, but the dollar amount, of course, is very, very high. There's many families that don't even have that to live on a year, let alone just for one household for a month. My assumption is that Kelly would have offered something generous at the beginning of the case to avoid this big public battle. I know from representing celebrities that they have the same problems that we do. We're all people, and it hurts just the same to go through a breakup like this, and we all hopefully want to keep our kids out of it. But what's different about celebrities is that this fight then becomes public, and it can hurt their image, it can damage their brand, but more importantly, the impact on children is so much greater because it's not just the circle of friends and family that know about the divorce. It's like the world. And so I would imagine that Kelly would have thrown a lot of money at this in initial settlement discussions to stop it. And obviously that didn't work, and now they're in court in a really nasty battle. Good for her, though, is that she had a good attitude about it. She kept it child-centered. And I think she looks good at the end of the day in the way that this turned out, that she said, yes, this hurts, but I'm keeping my focus on my kids. Sometimes we see a shakedown element here in these cases where the other spouse is asking for outrageous amounts of money because they think that the celebrity spouse will pay it to avoid a fight. I don't know if that was going on, but if it did, Brandon overplayed his hand. Next, we're going to talk about spouse support, or some other jurisdictions will call it alimony or maintenance. And that's there to help for a soft landing for a spouse. At the end of a marriage, it's rehabilitative. It helps get them back on their feet again, and that's fine. The parties were not married that long. They were married for 7 years. And in California, we would typically order spouse support for half the length of the marriage. So he could expect to receive spouse support for about 3.5 years. We don't have a fixed standard for setting spouse support. We have some guidelines for temporary support in this period now where they are pre-trial. Mostly the court's going to look at a whole bunch of factors and see what is equitable. Brandon's receiving $50,000 a month in child support. That's going to cover housing for sure. So what else does he need support for? And that's not really that clear. It sounds like he has some income or assets of his own, but California will allow a very generous spouse support order based on the ability of the other party to pay for it and their marital standard of living. I'm assuming they had a very high standard of living, so the support is also going to be high. $150,000 a month is a gigantic amount of money, and it's tax-free under federal law now. So he's getting $150,000 a month in tax-free alimony plus $50,000 a month in tax-free child support. That's $200,000 per month, $2.4 million a year. That is a huge amount of money for sure. And I can understand mathematically how the court would get to this level of support. Obviously, the court believed that this was appropriate based on all the circumstances that it considered. But still, there's some questions here about why he's doing this. There's a premarital agreement between the two of them. And I would imagine that there's a limitation on spouse support in that agreement because that's typical. And under California law, a premarital agreement requires each side to have counsel. So he is a sophisticated business person, would have been represented by counsel, would have negotiated this agreement, and now he won't honor it. He's challenging it. And that bothers me. Maybe there's something in the agreement that's one-sided or harsh and makes it appropriate for him to challenge it. I don't know. But still, I feel, hey, you signed it. You should be accountable for it. He was also awarded $1.25 million in fees. And I imagine Kelly would have a similar amount. So they're out at least $2.5 million in fees so far as a family. And they're not even anywhere close to resolving this case. And having that much fees awarded can perpetuate the case. Ultimately, it's up to Kelly and Brandon to say, stop fighting and end this. And I hope that they will be able to get there after this ruling. There's been questions about whether it's okay for a man to take support from a woman. And we even call it MANIMONY. I did an ABC interview about that. That'll be in the playlist here if you want to see that, some more detail. Every family's different. And we have many families where the breadwinner is the mom and that the dad has stayed home to take care of the children. And that makes perfect sense for that family. If they break up, they're going to need to continue a similar arrangement because mom's going to be out there working, earning the money. Dad's going to be staying at home, taking care of the children. So support in that case makes absolute sense. It's not a gender issue. Here, it seems like Brandon has wealth of his own. He was successful before they met. They weren't married that long. They have the premarital agreement, and he's doesn't have primary custody. He took off to Wyoming. He has alternate weekends. So it's not like he's the stay-at-home dad and Kelly's the working mom. She's the working mom and she's earning the money and she's now having to pay support for somebody who's not even living in the same state. That seems wrong to me. I think the support order needs to fit what's right for this family and that we shouldn't be taking advantage of each other. I understand in a divorce, it's adversarial, everyone for themselves, and we'll see really extravagant claims being made, and we'll see the other side not wanting to pay much. Hey, what do you think about this? Do you think it's a gender issue? Do you think it's okay for a man to take money from a woman in support or not? If you can drop some comments about that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.